Josh.
I'm Michelle.
And this is Little Bandology. Still in season 2. I think this is, I ought to look at what episode we have coming up before we do this. So I'll know what episode we are.
Do a little prep.
I think
Come
it's like
on.
9, maybe?
10.
9 or 10? I don't know. But this episode I'm super excited about because we're entitling it The Power of the Pencil. And we'll get into more what that means in a minute. But first, we said that we had an announcement to make of sorts. I suppose you could call it an announcement.
Yeah, well, I mean, technically, it's already been announced.
It's already been announced at this point, but at the last time we released an episode, it hadn't been announced. We will be traveling abroad this summer.
I mean, it's not really abroad. It's still
abroad. Anything out of Texas for us is abroad.
I mean, it's still in the United States, though, so it is not abroad.
I'm calling it abroad. It's broad. It's the furthest north I have ever been in the United States.
Also me.
Yes. So which is pretty good because up until that point, I believe Rochester.
Well, no.
Oh,
okay,
wait. Oh, maybe it's not.
I don't know. We'll have to look at a map.
I don't know. We've been to Niagara Falls. We drove from Rochester to Niagara Falls.
I don't know. I'm going to look it up.
Okay, while she's doing that,
I'm going to ask Google.
You're going to ask Siri what she has to say. Just don't ask ChatGPT. We have been asked to present by Ekroth Music up in the Midwest. We are going to be traveling to Minnesota, Maple Grove, Minnesota, and participating as one of the clinicians for the Total Band Director Workshop, which I didn't know existed, but I think now that I've seen it, I think it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's really
a
cool.
2-day event, and we will be presenting and hanging out the first day. We have obligations the second day, but we are very excited to be asked and invited to go.
Wait, what is the name of the town?
Maple Grove.
Okay, you just said that, didn't you?
I did.
Oh goodness, I need to listen.
That's okay. You were you were busy doing other things. What they do at this conference, which I think is absolutely brilliant. So they bring people in that maybe didn't get a chance to go to Midwest because around that time of the year, if you've ever been to Midwest, it is around Christmas time. And sometimes people can't travel, or sometimes it is in Chicago. Chicago is an expensive city. To go and stay, even though Midwest is, if you've never been, it needs to be a bucket list item at the very least. When we presented there not too long ago, it was absolutely magical. We're hoping to go back just as conference members this next year. So that's hopefully we'll be there and you can visit and say hello. But we will be in Maple Grove, Minnesota. And it's a 2-day event, and within that 2 days, they have 5 clinicians, 6 clinicians, and it's hosted, I think, on a golf resort or something like that. Not only do you get all these presentations, but there's a reading band, and I believe Hal Leonard is there, and this is their 10th year, I think.
I don't know. You've done way more research on it than I have.
But apparently not enough. It has been going for some time, and we have friends that have actually presented there.
Yeah.
Our good friend Corey Graves, we all hail from the big metropolis of Henderson, Texas.
Well, I don't actually hail from there, but Josh does.
I do. But he's a very dear friend of ours and presented there not too long ago. So we're excited to get it to go and experience that and talk small school. We love talking small school anywhere and everywhere, and so this will give us a chance to do that. And we get to present 2 sessions, which we've never gotten to do before.
Right.
So this is just all new experiences for us. Get to hang out with some great music educators and ask as many people as want to ask us questions. We always probably want to ask more questions.
Right. I'm excited to learn from the other people that are going to be there.
We're so curious. What can we take home with us and try? When we went to Louisiana and presented, we were the same way. We were like, yeah, that's great. That's great. We gave you what do you got? What can you help us with? Give us information so we can better understand you. And we learned a lot about Louisiana music education, the good and the bad.
Right.
And how those teachers are basically superheroes.
Yes.
Superheroes in Louisiana. So if you teach band and you feel like you don't have resources, just know that we think you're a superhero.
For sure.
Definitely.
And we are so thankful. We actually have summer jobs. And so
we do.
We're so thankful to our boss. Shout out Megan for allowing us to get away from our summer job during that time.
However briefly.
Yeah. So that we could actually get to do this. So.
But yeah, we are very excited to go and do that. So
Maple Grove is 2 degrees of latitude, or 140 miles further north than Niagara Falls, New York.
So it is, in fact, the furthest north we have ever been.
Yes.
Well, I guess maybe on the globe. I don't know. I've been to Europe. I don't know how north I was on Europe, but in the United States, at the very least, This is the highest.
Somebody told us it might feel like Texas winter while we're there.
And I'm so excited because if you don't know, Texas winter, we wear shorts. We are
sometimes. Sometimes it gets really cold. But.
Yeah, and winter in Texas only lasts, and people think, oh, December must be cold. No, it's never
listen,
cold in December.
On May 1st in Texas, it was like 56 degrees outside, and we were like, what is happening?
This was yesterday, people, and I wore a hoodie and jeans and was still slightly chilly. I don't know what's going on with the world, but it has been raining like crazy down here, and so the temperature has been going back and forth. Guess what, though?
It's hot today.
I'll be rocking some shorts today when I go outside. The power of the pencil. This came about from an article that we read in the Southwestern Musician, and I'm not going to say, because we don't 100% agree with them, I'm not going to say who wrote the article, but I will say that in the article they talked about how they take all their students' music and they mark it for them. And I think that sparked a conversation with us of, really? First of all, how do you have that much time? Because we don't.
Oh, well, and I mean, it's a much bigger program than we are. I have to say that.
It is. They are much bigger programs. They have more resources than we do. But we also teach, if you're in a small school, you're teaching 6th through 12 band. Mm-hmm. This was a middle school band director teaching, I guess, just 6th, 7th, and 8th grade band. And you have more time. If you don't have the extra faction of a high school ensemble, you end up having more time. And if your bands are maybe a little bit smaller,
yeah, they're less kids.
Yeah, like our high school band is 60-ish students any given year. And to take and mark all those parts before we give it to them is just not feasible with everything because sometimes you find out things you want to mark within the confines of a rehearsal. And so we wanted to talk about how we approach marking our music, how we teach the habit and the routine of making sure students feel comfortable doing that during the rehearsal time.
Well, and I'm going to throw this out there. When I was student teaching, and then I also went back and taught at that same place a few years later, there was a director there who did do this. And she would number every single part before she gave it to the student. Like, she would number their measures for them. She would go through and she would mark the notes that were in the key signature. Like, she would go through and she would put flats and sharps in front of the notes.
Oh my gosh.
That were keynotes. And I mean, she would mark things. But so I did this one season, like for my students.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of time that I did it. But what I found is they overlooked my markings. Like, I was still having to correct those same notes.
Well, even when you have your students mark, sometimes they miss the marking.
Right. Because
especially in middle school. Matter of fact, just a rehearsal, I believe maybe yesterday or the day before, one of our 7th grade students, I said, okay, everybody make sure that that's marked. If it's not marked, you need to mark it. And they didn't move. And I was like, why aren't you moving? Where is your pencil? Do you not have a pencil? And she looked at me and she said, oh, I already marked it. And I went, you better mark it again. Mark it bigger, mark it louder, mark it brighter, however you need to, so you don't miss that again. But I think there's a tactile portion of that, taking a pencil and marking a part.
Well, and there are studies. There are studies about that.
Are there really studies of that?
Well, no. Peter Boonshaft, he talked about that in his clinic about how like if you say it to them, they remember like something like 30% of what you say, and they remember. And I'm making these numbers up. I don't know what the actual numbers are off the top of my head.
Percentage.
But yeah, and then like they remember something like 60% of what they write down, and then they remember like 98% of what they do, or so. It's like the percentage grows by each thing. And so like actually having to write that stuff down, they're more likely to remember it than if you do it for them.
That's right. And so what we do is we start that in the 6th grade. Now, some caveats to what we do. Number one, they are not allowed to mark every note.
No,
they are not allowed to mark every fingering. If I find that, I make them erase it when they're in 6th grade. In 7th grade, I give them a whole new piece of music. They get a whole new piece of music. If we walk behind them, and we do, I mean, you walk through rehearsal. You should walk through rehearsal.
Yeah.
Or have someone that's walking through rehearsal. If you notice that a student has every single, trombones are the worst. I'm just going to put this out there. As a trombone player, trombones are the worst about writing in the numbers of the position. And if you see that, we take it away and we give them a fresh piece. And we say, okay, you can there you go. We're starting over. This is not acceptable. But how we start that in their 6th grade year is they get a binder from us. And if you're not familiar with our program, we do provide everything. We have found ways and to work our budget, which is not, I mean, it's not a bad budget, to be honest.
We're
it
actually
gives us
quite
what
lucky.
we need. We are quite blessed. However, I think regardless of where I go in the future, if I ever go anywhere before I retire, that this will be a priority for me. Any student that's in my program needs to have, because you don't know if you're a Title I school, and in Texas, that means that you have a very high percentage on free and reduced lunch. I think we have something like 80% on free and reduced lunch in Beckville. And so those students, school supplies are a heavy burden on parents. And so we provide them with a binder, and it's not a fancy binder. It's an Amazon, come in a box of, 10 or a box of 15, and they're, $2 a piece or something like that. They're not very expensive. We give them a pencil bag, and we reuse every year. If a student decides not to keep their binder, or if they're not going to be in band, we take their binder, we salvage what we can from it. And that includes everything from the binder itself. Sometimes we can use it. Most times we cannot.
I would say 98%
of the time we cannot.
We're trashing binders.
Pencil bags, pencils.
We usually, I would say almost 100% of the time, we can reuse the pencil bags.
Oh, yeah, easy. Even we laminate fingering charts for our students.
We keep those.
We hand those out. But we always make sure that in that pencil bag, there are 2 pencils. And we give them 2 different kinds of pencils. We give them a normal pencil. Sometimes if we're feeling, I don't know what feeling that would be.
Saucy.
We'll give them a Beckville pencil if we happen to have them, which is on our order list right now. And person who prints Premier Music Teaching Aids, shout out to Premier Music Teaching Aids. They do personalized pencils.
They're really cool.
And they're awesome. And I know a lot of band directors that use them. And they are a sponsor of Little Bandology here, and they are located here in East Texas, but they will ship anywhere.
You can put whatever you want on the pencil.
Anywhere. I could write, Mr. King is awesome, give him all the money, and put it on a pencil. And that would be very...
Or you could put Mark Your Music on your pencil.
Whatever you want to put. And so we'll give them a big pencil, and then we also give them a golf pencil. Now, we have sprung in recent years for a golf pencil with an eraser on it, because we used to do just a regular golf pencil with one of those little cap erasers we put in there. Those cap erasers disappear.
Yeah,
so
they
fast.
fall off. We find them all over the band hall floor. It's a mess.
And this is where some people agree with us and some people don't agree with us. We do not have a pencil sharpener in the band hall. I'm going to let that sit there for a minute. We do not have a pencil sharpener in the band hall. We have a pencil dispenser. A dispensary of pencil, if you will.
Full of sharp pencils.
Full of sharp pencils. We have a cup that the dull pencils go into and a sharpened pencil dispenser. And it's actually like a straw dispenser kind of situation. It's like those that you press down and it shoots out a straw, that I'm not 100% sure that that's hygienic. But with pencils, it's cool and it's fine. And we have pencils on the side of it. And we never fault a student for going and getting a pencil. Ever. Because it's more important than they have one, than they feel guilty because they didn't have one. Because your junior high students, specifically your 6th and heck, your high school students, that pencil is going to end up in math. Just accept it. That pencil is going to end up in math. We buy huge boxes of pencils, and we do it at the end of the year. With whatever budget money we have left over, we spend that on those items we need for the 6th grade for the next year, based on the number that we have.
You have so much to say. And we buy them pre-sharpened.
I always have so much to say.
Buy them pre-sharpened. Do yourself a favor. Buy them pre-sharpened.
I'll talk to a wall.
I was just going to keep talking, so I interrupted you.
That's fine. Did we mention that they're pre-sharpened pencils? And so students can go and get one of those at any time, and then they leave whatever dull pencils, and then we have a student at some point sharpen those pencils. Or we do. It depends on how our schedules look and those kinds of things for the day.
But it's a great job for your leadership.
Yeah.
Truthfully.
Or just those students that want to help. In 6th grade, you get those helper kids that are like, what can I do to help? And they may not be the best player, but they can sharpen a pencil. And they're excited to contribute, even if they have a problem knowing their fingerings or note names or anything like that, or they're just having difficulties. That makes them feel useful, and that may be a benefit to your program down the line. Who knows? That may be your future load crew captain right there. And we actually have them mark their parts in 6th grade. If they're missing, if it's a new note, sometimes we'll let them mark the new note. If there's breath marks are a big thing, because some beginners you'll find, especially in your instruments like tuba and flute, they want to breathe after every note sometimes. And it's good to mark them and say, no, we're going to make this a 2-note phrase or a 1-bar phrase or a 2-bar phrase, or, if you can get them to a 4-bar phrase, yay for you. And we mark all of that. We have them mark all of that.
What's important, though, is that as 6th graders, that you're teaching them how you expect them to mark their music. You have to teach them that, just like you have to teach them anything else in band. They're not just going to inherently know how to do that.
Yes, that is so true. Matter of fact, you have to teach them everything. Really, even coming in a room sometimes all together and being organized and efficient.
Yeah, yesterday.
Is alien.
Yesterday we had our first full band 6th grade rehearsal, and it was a lot of, oh no, we're not going to come in the room like that. Let's go back out and try again.
Yeah, they were so excited. And not only did we have our first rehearsal, it was in the auditorium. So they had to come into the band hall, get their instrument, and then make their way to the auditorium. And so Michelle was in the band hall, I was in the auditorium, and I just sort of caught them as they were coming down the hall. And it's like a whole U of hallway that they have to come down. So we don't have eyes on them 100% of the time. But they came in, everybody got where they were supposed to go. And I was actually very pleased once they got moving that direction, that everything we've been telling them all year actually kind of stuck. And that was great. But back to marking your part, we actually did some of that yesterday. In our full band rehearsal, we made sure that they had pencils, and then they marked their parts as we went. It is not too early to use those pencils for them to mark who they need to be listening to, and for them to understand what a melody is, what a harmony is, what a counter melody is, what an accompanimental part is, and how all of those function together. So yesterday, we actually spent time on one of our pieces just marking up those parts, so they know who they need to listen to. And it's not a matter of saying, oh, they need to play louder than so-and-so. No, you just need to listen for that part and make sure that you can hear it. And then they'll adjust accordingly. And that's how you can get them working balance and blend without telling them they're working balance and blend. In 7th grade, we do a lot more marking because we're playing a lot more music and not just beginner lines or beginner exercises or things like that. And we're talking a lot about tuning tendencies of notes. And so not only are we marking breath marks and phrase markings, we're also marking whether you have to raise or lower a note, or if there's something you need to do, like there's a million different tricks with flute to get your pitch up or down. And so what they have to do with those respects to make sure that they know what the expectation is and what's coming up. And that way they don't miss it. Because even your 7th graders, especially your 7th graders, will miss those markings and have to remark it, and that's okay. Or they may have to change it. And we offer them a bunch of different markings that they can choose from as we go through it. Like if they're listen for, I show them, I draw an ear, and it's a very simple, it doesn't really look much like an ear, but it kind of comes out like an ear when you're done. So they don't have to write the word listen. But really, whatever it is on their part, we make it known that as long as they know what it means, that's fine.
I'm very specific about, like, if they're marking a keynote that they just have a really hard time remembering, or like maybe an accidental that carries through the measure, I want them to be specific and write the accidental. I don't want them to just circle the note, because inevitably, they're going to forget why they circled that note. It needs to be something more specific than a circle. And so I want them to be specific with their markings. That's why I'm not a big fan of highlighters. Like, I know a lot of students use highlighters to mark their music.
Yes.
And some of them have a very specific key to their highlighters, and that's cool. But if you're just highlighting with one color, well, you're not going to remember why you highlighted. I need your markings to be specific. And so I try to tell them, specifically, this is what I want you to mark. But whatever it is, it needs to have a specific meaning to it, so you know exactly what you mean when you get to that point in the music.
Well, and we talked too about why we mark our part. And the number one reason we mark our part is because we're human. And humans forget. We forget. I forget. You forget. Everybody forgets. We just forget different things. So if you don't mark it and you think in your head, oh, I'm going to remember that I missed that. You're not. Let's be honest. When I play, I think that. I think, oh, I have a master's degree. I will remember that. No, I miss it every time. So you have to mark that part so you will know what's coming up. Something that we're going back to Peter Boonshaft, which, by the way, if you haven't read any of his books, you really, really should. They're really, really great. Or go to one of his clinics. He's absolutely brilliant. He's one of our superstars, matter of fact. He talks about taking up the students' music and checking their markings. And I think that's also, if you're going to do one or the other, if you're going to mark their music or check their markings, I think it's the better of the two. If you're taking it up and looking at their markings. Now, to be honest, you know how students are. They may have a bad day and take it out on you and write, oh, Mr. King is butt face, and write that on their music. So you just kind of have to be prepared for that. Hopefully it's nothing vulgar, but you never know. But the main thing is making sure that they're marking those parts. I don't think it necessarily has to be taking up every student's music.
You could take one section up at a time.
You could. But I do think that it does mean that you need to be looking at that music. So if you have students coming to pass off music, that's a great time to look at their markings because they're right there.
And it holds them accountable. Like if they know you're looking at it, they are more likely to actually be marking it.
Yes. And it allows you to ask questions with the student in the room if you're doing pass-offs, which we've done. That was actually our last episode where we talked about pass-offs. If you're doing in-person pass-offs, that's very easy to do. If you're not, that is a little trickier. There's ways to do it. I'm sure you could have them take a photo and send it to you or anything like that. But even if you're just walking around during your rehearsal, if you put rows in your ensemble, which we do especially in the fall with our junior high bands, we have a couple of rows so we can get to every student. That way, if a horn malfunctions or there's something that catches our ear, we can go straight to the problem and fix it without having to play the, oh, where is it game from the podium. But you can look at music, too, while you're doing that. You can also look and see if they actually have a pencil on their stand because we don't want it in their pencil bag. We want it on that stand every day. We want to hear the zip pencil on the stand. We do binder checks, and I think we've talked about that in an episode, too. And those are very important because it shows you, number one, the organization level of each student. If they bring your binder. Now, that's not something we necessarily do every week. We do in the beginning. We check it every Friday in the beginning. But it's something you may do once a month or once a 6 weeks or once a 9 weeks, whatever your grading period is, once an academic quarter. But we want to see how their organization is and make sure that they have all the parts in there. Now, by this time of the year, if you're going to get through to them, you're going to notice that. And if you're not going to get through to them, you're going to notice that too. Because I have a student, a sixth grader right now that I'm thinking about, that his binder is on its last legs, and he has asked me for another one, and I told him, no, you've got less than 6 weeks. You can make it. The rings have been bent because he just doesn't take care of his folder. The dividers have been ripped out at this point. His rhythm is all in different orders. His music is stuffed in the pocket. It's just a hot mess. It is a typical, this is what not to do binder. Even though we have been doing all those things, we have been checking the binder, we have been making sure everything's there. He's just one of those kids. It's just chaos in there. Making sure the pencil is part of that binder and making sure that they have two of them. We do random pencil checks, especially if it seems like for a couple of rehearsals we haven't had students with pencils, because again, we don't fault them for going and getting one. That's important. So if we've started warm up and they realize they don't have a pencil, they don't have to ask. They just get up, they go get a pencil, they sit back down. And we do that pretty much all year long. The high schoolers do it too. Matter of fact, was it yesterday you brought all the pencils into junior high?
Yes.
So because we were moving into the auditorium, we have our spring concert coming up on Tuesday. So if you happen to be around Beckville at 6 o'clock, come listen to our bands. If you know where Beckville is on a map, kudos to you.
It's farther south than Minnesota.
It is much further south than Minnesota. If you say farther north, no.
I definitely don't know my geography.
If you turn the globe upside down, it is further north. So that way you're not 100%. We're not 100% wrong on that. But it's very, very, very south and very warm right now. But we have our spring concert coming up, and so the students brought all their accoutrement to the rehearsal, and No, it was for beginners. It was for beginners. It was. I promise, we know what we're doing.
It's the end of the year.
It's the end of the year, and we have May brain.
We're kind of on the struggle bus.
We
a little
have
bit.
May brain, and if you don't know what May brain is, how long have you been teaching, really? Because May is the worst month of the year when it comes to just stuff being piled on nonstop. But it was beginners, and it was yesterday. I thought it was 7th grade.
I believe
beginners,
you.
and it was yesterday.
I just remember I stabbed myself and maybe still have a piece of lead in my hand.
And I remember I chunked pencils at a bunch of kids, which I'm sure is questionable in a lot of respects. But they
loved it.
Once they got their pencils, they hunkered down, and we rehearsed, and they rehearsed really well. The first time you put 6th graders together, if you have the ability to split them and then put them together, we do it twice before our concert, and I think I'd love to do it 3 times, but it just doesn't fly that way. The benefit to having them all together is they already know how to do all this. You've taught them that this is how we rehearse with a full band setting. So that's the benefit. There's always a benefit to everything, pretty much. The first rehearsal where you have them all together can go one of 2 ways. It can be chaotic or it can be magical. And it was quite magical for us yesterday. We were actually able to rehearse, not just go over protocol within 45 minutes of getting the kids down there and allowing them time to put up at the end of class. But yeah, so I chunked pencils at kids that didn't have them, and I found out that our kids are in the right place. Not a lot of kids caught pencils, and they were not all bad throws. That we don't have a lot of good hand-eye coordination in our 6th grade this year. There was lots of dropped pencils, but we all got pencils, and we marked music as we rehearsed, and it was great. It was wonderful. By the time your students get to high school, if you stress it in 6th grade and you stress it in the first year, and you stress it in the second year, going into your high school experience, they will do it. The trick is you just have to make sure that they're stocked all the time.
Right.
Because they disappear very quickly.
And for those that aren't really doing it, your leadership kind of takes care of it. They make sure that kids are marking their parts.
Yes.
Which is great.
Definitely. And if you have solid students within a section, they will help the other students. Now, we don't necessarily take music away when students write fingerings in, because you will have a couple that, especially if you have any special needs students, those students sometimes will write in positions or fingerings or note names. And I don't have 100% problem with that as long as they're doing it correctly.
That would be considered their accommodation.
Yeah. And so that's differentiation for you, which allows them to be successful at their rate. Also, them having a pencil, if they have a problem with a spot, they can underline it or circle it and come to you, and you can help them rewrite that part so it better suits them. That's another great way to use your markings. We also typically, and this is straight up, I'm pretty sure this is a Melly and Mala thing. If they're having problems with a spot, we'll circle it and we'll write 911.
Oh, yeah, that is definitely Melly.
And 911 means that has to be practiced as soon as possible to get better. Or we have to figure out what we can do to make that better. But we do have students mark 911 on their music. So that way we have an idea and they have an idea of what needs to get better.
It's essentially, okay, this is the first thing you're practicing when you get home. Everything else can wait. If you only have time to practice one thing, it's this.
Inevitably, if you make it that big a deal, the student will find time to practice it, especially in the 6th and 7th and 8th grade years, those junior high years. Those students will definitely do that. My high school students typically will come in before school, after school, sometimes during their lunch, and will practice during that time. Because if you know anything about small school, your high school students, they're busy. They do so many things. Sometimes practice doesn't make it into the day unless they get it in close to the end of the beginning of the school day, or even at lunch, if they can fit that in. Some will even come in and start practicing as soon as they hit the door for our high school band on some stuff that we worked on the previous day, or at the end of band before they put up their horn. So all of that still counts. The pencil will help them know what they need to practice and what they need to do and what they need to make better. And in high school, we mark anything and everything: key signatures, time signature changes. I have them draw a big number, and sometimes those knuckleheads still miss it. Big number above the time signature, so that way that is what grabs their attention. So if it goes from 4/4 to 3/4, they'll do a big 3. That seems to help with that.
Let's be honest, that's for the people that have rests more than for the people who are playing notes.
Yes, because it's easy to make that transition if you've got notes doing it for you. You know where your big macro beats are when you change. But if you're counting rests, woof, man, it can be a really sticky situation if you still count 4 and it's 3. Boy, you miss that entrance big time. Always want to make sure that they're marking it, so that way they always paying attention. So if you don't have the budgetary ability to purchase pencils for every student, you can always offer extra credit to students to bring in pencils.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Especially because most stores, and I've seen this at Walmart, you can find, and they don't have to be, now listen, folks, a math teacher will ask for the pre-sharpened Dixon Ticonderoga number 2 pencil. You don't need that. I love those pencils. They are very high quality. They are very nice. Does not matter. Does not matter, because if you're a 6th grader or a 7th grader, well, if you're a high school student, that pencil's going to disappear. It's going to end up on your floor. I pick up probably 5 or 6 pencils a day off our band hall floor. And
honestly, like, yeah, we have a lot of pencils that we didn't buy in our little box.
Yes, and we have a very interesting array of pencils. I think I found a Hello Kitty pencil on the floor the other day.
Sometimes if it's nice enough, I just put it in my own cup.
Yeah, there you go. That's an option too. Or you can always do you have school supply drives and things like that. Instead of going out to the community and saying, hey, we're doing a fundraiser for this amount of money, say, hey, we're trying to make sure every child has 2 pencils in our program. This is how many pencils we need. What can you donate? And you will be shocked. Because if they can give something tangible, most businesses will. Even though sometimes it's easier to cut a check, they want to give something tangible that you're going to use. So that's an option too, but that is non-negotiable for us. Pencils are super duper important to what we do. And they're great visual aids too. You can talk about Airstream using a pencil. It's a visual aid. In addition to, I'll even have them hold them up like the Airstream's going to go. So that way they can have that visual of where their Airstream needs to go using a pencil. If you do breathing gym, there's exercises that you can do that you can incorporate a pencil with that to be more successful, to give them that visual aid. Pencils, non-negotiable. Get them, have them, love them, use them. Your kids will thank you. Your ears will thank you. Your audiences will thank you, because those students will be. Oh, there's one more story. And I can't remember who, it was at a clinic, but I can't remember who did the clinic. There was a band director in Florida, a lady band director in Florida who was considered to be a master teacher. And this was a number of years ago. And her students performed as part of a state conference, I think. It was a junior high band. The students were encouraged to write what the music made them feel, or to come up with stories about the music and to write those stories in the margins of the music. And so these students had so much written on their music around the margins that showed basically their cognitive connection to the music. And let's be honest, like lyrical, we've had this problem this year with students making connection to the music, an emotional connection. Mm-hmm. They're being too analytical, I guess. It's all about notes and rhythms and cut and dry and blending and balancing, but there's not an emotional aspect to the music. And so this genius band director, had students write in around the margins their story regarding the music. And every story apparently was a little bit different. That was just something she started, and it just sort of held, and the students did that for every piece of music. And I can't believe I just now thought of it after we're almost done with this concert music we're presenting on Tuesday. But that's also an option, to tell the story of what they think, because you can come up with stories for just about any piece of music. And you can do it on the back of the music too. You don't have to do it around the margins. But that's another option for marking your music. But the main thing is it holds your kids accountable, and we are all about accountability, because in small schools, you can't be held accountable for everything. You'll never get it all done. You'll burn out so fast.
Yes.
And you got to make it at least until retirement. That's the goal, right? You don't want to have to change careers after you did all this work becoming such a great musician with all this passion to lose that. So hold your kids accountable. Make them mark their music. Make sure their neighbors mark their music. You should have students like that in just about every section, or at least one every other section. They can go, nope, you need to mark that. You missed it. And hold each other accountable. It'll help your band. It'll help you. It'll make your band better and make you have better musicians. So hopefully this gave you some ideas. If you're doing more with pencils, other than, chunking them at their heads.
Please don't do that.
Please don't do that. I tossed them when I gave them to the students. I didn't chunk them at their heads.
Only the kids that were asking for them.
Yes. Yes, only the kids that were asking for them, so their hands were open, and there was eye contact before I let go of those pencils the other day. If you have ideas on how you can better use, marking your music, anything specific, or if you heard something that you liked that you think can be made better, please feel free to email us at littlebandology@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
If you're going to be at the Total Band Director Workshop,
oh my gosh,
let us know.
Yes. Shout out. We had a bunch of downloads from the Midwest after it was announced. We do hope you enjoyed what you heard and don't think that a couple of loony bins are coming up there to talk to you about small school band.
If there's something specific you want us to talk about.
Yes. If there's something you want to know or something that we can better make clear to you. I know we're giving one of our sessions is going to be over growing and cultivating your small school band, which is our number one requested clinic, actually. And we love that clinic because it's fun to talk about small school band, but I get to rag on my own children, and I love to do that. So that will be one of our sessions. We are not 100% sold on the other one yet. We have some options. So if you have any suggestions of what you would like to hear, right, let us know.
We're going to have to update that one picture of Noah.
Never.
I mean, he was like an 8th grader.
I know, but it's so funny. Senior. So funny. Yeah, we'll have to do some updating on some of our content and some of the jokes. Some of the jokes got to get updated. They're getting a little stale, a little old. We are looking forward to being with you this summer. And if you have an idea on an episode you would like to hear or have questions about, guess what? If we don't have the answer, we don't mind asking people what they think and what they do, and we can bring that information to you. So again, littlebandology@gmail.com, or follow us on Facebook. Yeah. Little Bandology on Facebook. Find us there. Feel free to comment on any episode. Send us a message on Facebook. We'd love to hear from you. So until then, till next time.
Bye.